Hello and welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. My name's Greg Tepper. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast. The other host of this podcast, many would say the lead host of this podcast. He's the man they call Josey, Andrew Watts.
Hello, Greg, and none would say that. Zero.
I hope everybody would look at us and say they are very equally splitting the duties there.
It is very, very kind of you to say that. Right in. 787.
Yeah. Line them up. 888-787. This is the RYLAcast Rotary, the official podcast, Camp RYLA Rotary District 5810. We do thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us. Before we get into the meat of this podcast, and we've got a very good podcast coming up. I don't want to oversell, but we have Jannina Johnson on the podcast, which is a big get for this little podcast.
Oh, yeah. You can't really oversell that.
No, it's a big get for us. And I've got a few things to talk about as well. But first, okay. Do you ever have something that you've just been thinking about all day and all you want to do is talk about it to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. This has been happening to me. Josey, okay. I need to tell you about a TV show I watched.
Tell me about it.
Okay. I need to tell you about, and to be very clear about this is not a new show. This is not some sort of like hipster thing of like, oh, hey, here's this obscure show that I discovered on some niche platform. No, this is a show that has been like an award-winning show that I just got around to watching because I have children. Josey, do you have Apple TV Plus?
I do. Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to recommend Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso's fine. Like, watch Ted Lasso, I suppose. That's not what I'm talking about. Josey, have you watched Severance?
I have not. Is it, what's that guy's name?
Adam Scott.
Thank you, Adam. I was going to say Adam Driver, and it's not Adam Driver.
It's Ben. I always think of him as Ben from Parks and Rec.
Okay, I think of it as the brother from Step Brothers. So.
Oh yeah, he's Derek. He's Derek from Step Brothers. What a pull! Exactly right. Okay, so Severance is and I want to recommend this show because I can't stop thinking about it, and I don't know if I've ever experienced anything quite like it. It's 9 episodes. Episodes are about 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes.
Okay.
The elevator pitch is that Adam Scott's the lead. He's a guy named Mark. He's an employee at this like major corporation called Lumen Industries, and he agrees to a new technology called Severance, in which they go and they install a chip in your brain, and it separates your non-work memories from your work memories. So when he goes to work and he goes to the severed floor, he doesn't know anything about his outside world. Doesn't know that he has parents. Doesn't know that he has a sister. He has a sister. Doesn't know anything about his outside world. And then whenever he goes back up and out of work, then he doesn't know anything about work. He doesn't know anything about it.
Okay.
It's like a mind wipe medical procedure to separate the consciousness of employees between their lives at work and outside of it.
A true work-life balance.
That's exactly the cell. The cell is like, oh, like if you've ever wanted work-life balance, like here you go. You don't have to think about work whenever you're not at work because you're just a totally different person. You know what I mean?
Right.
It is a psychological thriller. It is Ben Stiller is a director on this. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's really well made. It's very creepy. I don't want to say too much because I went into it pretty cold and it was great. But Adam Scott, the cast is great. John Turturro is on there. John Turturro is great. Christopher Walken shows up. Patricia Arquette's in it. It is really good. It's Severance, and it I think it really it gets you thinking about what makes us human, what makes like relationships real, what makes like things like that. It's very, very. I can't stop thinking about it. Like, for example, like it's just a small thing when they are when they are at work, they call that person their innie.
Okay.
And when they're outside of work, they call it their outie. But it is just really fascinating. So I want to recommend Severance. It's really good, and it just gets you thinking, and it sticks with you. And it's just, there are 2 or 3 moments that will make you gasp out loud, and they're just great. It's not like gory or anything like that, so you don't need to worry about that. But
okay, Severance.
Severance.
I'm add it to the list, and I'm right there with you in terms of behind on things.
Yeah.
Kevin keeps texting me, "Have you seen the latest of this?" And every time I take a deep breath and I want to write, I have a wife and child. I can't.
Let me tell you, the answer is always no. It's always no.
I will watch it 3 years from now and text you about it then.
Yes, most certainly. Anyway, that's one thing I want to get off the top. But now it's time for the actual, I suppose, start of the podcast. And I've got the big segment this week. And Josey, I would like to tell you a story. And
I'm ready to listen to a story.
And this story, like all great stories, begins in Coleman, Texas.
Okay.
Beautiful Coleman, Texas. Do you know the mascot of of Coleman High School?
Probably not a cooler, right?
No, it is it's the Blue Cats.
Okay.
They're the Coleman Blue Cats. That is not germane to this story, but it's a great, it's an important fact. I think we all agree.
Yes, I do agree.
So we're going back to 1974, and Jerry Harvey is a professor, and he and his wife are visiting his wife's parents in Coleman. And there's a heat wave going on in Texas. He's spending time with his in-laws, and it is hotter than it's Texas. Okay, he says it's like 104. It's very, very hot. And his father-in-law suggests that, hey, you know what? Let's all go to dinner. Let's go to dinner tonight. You guys are in town. We'll go to dinner. We'll go to the big city. We'll go to Abilene. Okay. Abilene's 53 miles away.
Okay.
Let's go to dinner in Abilene. Okay. So father-in-law suggested. Harvey kind of goes along. It's like, yeah, that sounds great. His wife and his mother-in-law agree. It's like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. So they all go to dinner. And they all come back, and they're all miserable. Okay, they're hot and they're irritated, and that's when his Jerry Harvey's mother-in-law admits, she's like, I always thought going to Abilene was a terrible idea. I'd rather have stayed home. That's when Harvey and his wife say, yeah, we didn't really want to go either, but Dad wanted to go, so we went, and then his father-in-law says, I didn't really want to travel in an unconditioned car. I just thought, this is just something we can go do. He just suggested because he thought, the guests were getting bored. Stuff like that. So basically, they all went on a miserable trip that nobody wanted to go on. That's the story. And so Jerry Harvey is a professor of management science at George Washington University in D.C., and he dubbed this the Abilene Paradox. Okay?
Okay.
He dubbed this the Abilene Paradox, which is basically the idea of going along to get along. Okay? The idea of everyone agreeing on a less than ideal course of action. And I think we can all think of situations where we've been a part of that, where it's like, oh, you know what? I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be a part of, I don't want to go and make this, be a big deal. It's not that big of a deal. It's fine. We'll go, we'll just do what the group says, what the consensus is. I'll go along with it. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not groupthink. I think groupthink is very different. There's another researcher who said that groupthink is a unanimous decision that's driven by a high energy desire for cohesiveness and group harmony. But the Abilene Paradox is a low energy where it's just I just don't want to make a big deal out of this. You know what I mean?
More apathy than
just yeah, sure. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
But that can be really problematic. You know what I mean? Failure to speak up for yourself and what you think can ultimately come to a unanimous or near unanimous decision that nobody likes, and it's easy to
Right.
see how this can happen, because it's the idea of like, if there's rule by committee, then like what you're saying is like, oh, well, I'm smarter than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I know better. Like, you guys are all dumb. You don't want to rock the boat. I certainly get that. It can also help make people feel like they're absolved of responsibility for a decision. It's like, well, we all agreed on this. Like, it's not on me if this doesn't work. But ultimately, that's not the best decision for the group. Like, it was not the right decision for Jerry Harvey and his in-laws to go to Abilene, because nobody had a good time. They all thought it was going to be a bad idea, and it was. And so I think that is something that is easy to fall into in group situations of, okay, like, this feels like something that everybody can get on board with, and so why don't we just kind of go along to get along? Don't rock the boat. But sometimes when you don't rock the boat, that sinks the boat. And I think that's I read a little bit about this, and so I've got an article up here from a woman named Dr. Hannah Rose. And she mentions that there are some strategies to help kind of recognize the paradox and like limit its potential for damage. One of them is to just foster a safe environment where people having psychological safety, basically just saying like, otherwise team members are going to be quiet. They're just basically agree. But if you are safe, then you're more comfortable speaking up. Also, make space for honest discussions. And that is basically just saying, like, one thing we did, and this is something that we did at my job, we did an annual meeting, and we had my team, and we started with an airing of the grievances, where I just said, I was like, all right, guys, let's take 10 minutes. Like, what bugs you? Like, let's be honest about this. Like, take your time. And so being intentional about identifying some spaces where it's like, yeah, whatever, like, what are you thinking? Just make some space for it. So like, let's talk about this realistically and honestly, that you're not going to make somebody mad. We all know we're trying to get the best out of this. And then the other one is to be transparent in addressing feedback. There's going to be times when there are opinions that you disagree with. But it's important to offer feedback to those team members who maybe their suggestions are not taken. You know what I mean? And explain the rationale behind the final decision, so that everybody does feel like they've got some skin in the game, like their voice matters. But I think it's real. I don't know. I think it's really interesting, and I thought a lot about that, because I can certainly think of a couple of instances in my life where it gets to a particular like decision, and you don't feel great walking out of it, and it turns out kind of nobody does, but it's the one that everybody could agree on. And I don't know. I thought that was interesting, and it included the Coleman Blue Cats in a roundabout way. So there you go. The Abilene paradox is what I want to talk about today.
No, I find that fascinating, because to your point, I feel like as you're describing it, that could spiral to where it's going to come to a head.
Oh yeah,
right. And then somebody's going to say, "Oh, I never thought that, whatever, never thought that would work," and then it feels like you could go one of two ways of, well, yeah, why couldn't you see that? And it feels like it could blow up the team.
It's one of those things where, like, we always, I don't know, we talk a lot at camp, we talk a lot in the program, we talk a lot about managing conflict, right? And trying like conflict resolution. But sometimes, like, not all conflict is bad, and especially if there is a decision that's going to be made that like nobody really likes. Like they like to use a really like grim example. This Dr. Hannah Rose blamed the Challenger explosion on that. That basically, like, the group kind of collectively disregarded warnings from engineers. They're like, like we there have been delays and cancellations and stuff like that. We want to launch this thing. We all want to launch this thing. Let's just go. You know what I mean? When probably they should, there's people who probably knew better that just said, you know what? There's enough smart people who think so. We might as well just go along. I don't want to be the one to throw another wrench in it. And obviously it had tragic results, but it does strike me as one of those, like, it can sound like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth where we're like, oh, we want to be really good at conflict resolution. But here's a situation where like, yeah, you should probably have a little bit of conflict. Like conflict can be positive.
Right.
So anyway,
Fascinating.
There you go. The Abilene Paradox. If you want to read more about it, it was a 1974 article that Jerry B. Harvey wrote. So there you go. All right. Let's get on with our guest. We had a great conversation with Jannina Johnson. Here's our conversation with Jannina Johnson here on the RYLACast. Oh, Josey.
Oh, Greg.
Do you remember a couple of weeks ago when we had a guestless podcast because we weren't able to book a guest? And then a couple of weeks before that, whenever we had another guestless podcast because we weren't able to book a guest?
That's ringing a bell. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Several episodes are.
Unrelated to that, we're pleased to be joined by the guest, this week's guest on the RYLAcast, a much anticipated guest on the RYLAcast. We're pleased to be joined by our friend Jannina Johnson. Hi, Jannina.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. You're a tough book.
Sorry.
We've been trying to. Josey will vouch. We have been trying literally for months to get you on the podcast.
Months.
Sorry, guys. I'm constantly busy.
Yeah, you don't owe us an apology. Now the listeners maybe, but that's not either here nor there. Jannina, thank you for taking some time tonight with us. Let's start with this. We would like to ask folks about how they came to be involved in the RYLA program by kind of asking their RYLA story. What is your RYLA story?
Okay, so it was spring 2001. Jeez, it's been so long. I don't remember when I was a camper. And my counselor at school was like, hey, there's this program. I think you should apply. And I talked to some other girls in my class, and a couple of the other ones decided they were going to do it. And we filled out the application. The Rotarians came to the school and interviewed us in the library. And I just got a message saying, hey, you're going to go to this. And it was honestly the first time that I had slept away from home other than like at a friend's house for one night. So I was very like scared, and my parents, I was like, they're not going to let me go because they've never let me spend the night somewhere without them or my grandparents. And they were like, no, you can go. We're fine. We think it's time for you to go. So yeah, that's how I got to camp. It was I applied, didn't know what I was getting into. And then suddenly my parents were like, yeah, it'll be fine. And one of the Rotarians picked me up from the house and drove me out to Bridgeport, Texas.
Ooh, shout out Bridgeport.
Shout out to Bridgeport. I'd never, like I said, never camped, never been anywhere. I was very scared because that list that they gave us of things to bring was a little intimidating at the time. I'm pretty sure it's the same list. I don't think the list has changed. But yeah.
Did you bring your fishing equipment?
I did not bring my fishing equipment, but I did bring like an extra pair of dirty shoes. And I'm so glad because we really we got in the lake back then. Like it wasn't like where y'all put the canoes up to like the place so that they can like get off the dock. There was no dock. It was just muddy, get in the water, marsh area.
So y'all are the reason we now have a dock.
Yes, we are the reason you now have a dock. Exactly.
Okay, so what do you do? So 2001. Fast forward to 2023. What do you do now?
Well, after college, I was staying on my mom's couch post RYLA because I was a counselor right after I graduated college with no job. And just didn't kind of know what I was doing. And my mom's like, hey, come get a job at the insurance company I work at. And I was like, okay. So I got a job there, did well. stayed there for 15 and a half years. Became a manager. Like, it was great. I loved my career there. But last year, I was somewhere, saw another RYLA person, heard where he worked, said, "Hey, I've applied there," and I hadn't heard back. And he was like, "Give me a resume." And so I did, and I got an interview, and the interview turned into 2 more, which turned into a new job. So a year ago, right now, I was changing careers from insurance from 15 and a half years, and now I'm in the financial tech industry, which sounds fancy. But so your mortgages, all that stuff, when you need MLS sheets and things like that, my company supplies most of that. They supply most of the flood data for the country. They're just a big data company within the finance industry, banking, tax, all of that. They encompass all of that stuff. So that's where I work. And what I do is, if anybody has questions, any of those banks, from your big JP Morgan banks down to your mom and pop Main Street banks to your big real estate companies like Redfin, all the way down to your mom and pop Joe and Ann's real estate company on Main Street. They can buy our products, and if they have questions, they come to my little 7-man team, and we answer their questions about the products that we sell.
So I want to go back to 2001, where you mentioned we can go back and just listen to all the music. I'll just turn on 94.5 The Edge, and it'll be great. That's a reference for exactly 3 listeners.
That is a deep cut.
We'll go to Edgefest. All that's to say, we go back to 2001, and you mentioned that going to camp was your first time really away from home in any sort of meaningful way. You're now a counselor, and you're a mainstay on as a counselor at camp, and I'm interested in how your experience, that particular experience of you being your first time away from your parents and really away from home, kind of colors and helps your counseling style, like how you draw from your own personal experience and kind of spin that forward into your own counseling ways.
So I think first it allows me to identify with the parents, because when you go to the parent meetings and you're talking to parents and they're like, "I don't know what I've signed my kid up for," like, just being able to identify with them on that level, saying, "Hey, we've been here. We've actually been a camper. I was a camper that had never been away from home." It allows me to kind of interface with the parents, I think, on a level that kind of makes them feel comfortable, which then in turn makes the student feel more comfortable. And even just when the campers get to the cabin, just kind of, I will have already emailed them or talked to them on the phone and read their application. So I'll kind of get a feel of, is this their first time away from home, or have they been to band camp? Have they been to cheer camp? Or have they been to any of those kind of things? And I can kind of judge who needs a little more kind of love in that situation of, oh, they're away from home and they don't have their cell phone. So I need to make sure that they're getting the attention and interaction that somebody that, travels for AAU basketball every weekend might not need, because they're used to kind of being away from home. So it kind of helps me tailor my counseling style towards my students, but also towards their parents, and reassuring their parents that they're in safe hands and that we're going to take care of them.
So I'd call you an alum, Jannina, who's had your hand in multiple roles at camp. What keeps you coming back, so to speak, or staying involved with the program?
For me, I keep coming back because I love to see every year's transformation. I get to watch students come from their first orientation parent meeting starting in April, and I get to watch their little faces as they kind of feel like, what did I sign up for? And then I get to see them show up at camp and transform and grow and learn and come out on the other side with all this knowledge and all these tools that I know that they're going to use in the remainder of their life. And then I get to start that process up again in August and see some of those same students do advisory, and I watch them grow their skills in advisory. And then we come back around to April of the next year, and some of those students get interviewed and they come back as assistant counselors or activities counselors. And that to me is what I gain out of it. Like, I love Josey. I love Greg. I love your kids. I enjoy seeing you. I enjoy hanging out with you. But I could do that on the regular. That
For
doesn't,
sure. Yeah. I'll just come
yeah,
under your
that,
pool.
yeah, that doesn't keep me coming back. Because I can see you when I want to. It's getting to meet the students, watch them grow, watch them apply these things in their life, and then watch them move on. So I think my first year as a counselor was '06 when I graduated college. And I have had girls that have come back that are now counselors. And I'm going to be on staff with 2 of them this year, which is cool. That 2 of the people that were in my cabin, like 2 years that I thought were my actual worst years. And they were like, no, it was great. We loved you. We learned so much. I get to be on staff with 2 of those young women. And that to me is amazing because I watched them come through as campers, and now they're in their careers, they're getting married, they're planning the rest of their lives, and I get to see how all of that has evolved through RYLA, and that's what kind of keeps me coming back every year.
That is really cool. And to put that in perspective to folks who haven't been or experienced camp, that means 30% of female counselors will either be Jannina or have gone through Jannina's cabin.
That's kind of cool when you put it like that. I love statistics.
Well, that's really cool. Well, we are at the point in the interview where
This is the most interesting point in the interview because I have no idea where she's going.
Now I'm questioning every.
Nope. This is the best part.
We've come to the point of the interview, and I know you're an avid listener, so you know what's coming up. Where we ask our guests to plug something, and it could be a book, a podcast. We're not to launch your canoes at a summer camp, and anything. But we're going to hand the keys over to you, Jannina.
Josey, like, do you realize the multitude of things that Jannina might say here? It could be anything. If you follow her on Instagram, you know it could be literally anything. So I'm fascinated by what we're about to get.
I did not come prepared for anything because, like
Even
Greg
better.
said, it could be anything. So this week, I think it might be anime. I know last year around this time I was very deep into K-dramas. Like, I even mentioned them in my bio for camp last year. But this week, this time of year, I've kind of switched gears and I'm more into anime. So I just got a new Sailor Moon backpack today. I'm pretty excited about it. So I would just, you know what, just anything in another language, because I love any kind of media that makes me think outside the box. And kind of right now, I'm watching supernatural television shows from like Japan and Thailand. And of course, my language is very conversational. So I cannot speak to you in Japanese or Thai very well, but I can kind of pick up on some things. So I read a lot of subtitles. So I would definitely just recommend any kind of content in another language, specifically anything from Japan or Thailand currently.
So let me ask you about that. Is there, because I think that people may hear anime and they may be like overwhelmed.
Gotcha.
Can you recommend one or two, like, as our, let's just say like to ease into and like to start? Because I've watched a couple of them and I think that I went into a couple of them like not ready. You know what I mean? You've got to be ready. Like one of the first ones I ever watched was Attack on Titan, which is great. But if it's your first anime, that is drinking from a fire hose.
Yes.
So do you have one or two that you would recommend for, let's just say, anime novices?
Yes. So I would say Yu Yu Hakusho. It is older. You can catch it on Crunchyroll currently, I think, is the one that's streaming it. Possibly Hulu as well. I think Hulu's streaming it as well. It's a great intro, great story, and the pacing is good. So you won't feel overwhelmed, and you won't feel, if you're like not a fan of anything too gruesome or anything like that, like it doesn't have anything like that. So I would definitely recommend that for an anime. If you're like, I'm not really into anime or cartoons or anything like that, and you're just like, I just want like because that has a supernatural spin to it. And you're just like, I just want a supernatural show. Like if you liked the American show Supernatural, this is a great one for you. It's Thai and it's live action and it's called Midnight Museum. And you can watch it for free on YouTube. So it doesn't cost you anything. You just log into YouTube and look up Midnight Museum, and it's a great supernatural feel of a show. Now, is it a little hokey? Yes. I mean, come on, guys. It's, a low budget television show, but it's great, and I recommend it.
So now I want to ask you, the real reason we had you on is that you are known far and wide at Camp RYLA as the best packed staffer. Your packing for camp is legendary. Can you give us Jannina's guide to packing for camp?
So it's a great thing you ask, because I'm sitting at my desk. The best packing tip I can give you is start early. Yes, it is March 21st, but I already have my list together. I already have my back guest room laid out because I want to make sure I have everything that I need. So I have to go through, I keep everything in the shed. So I go up to the shed and I'm like, okay, let me take inventory of what I have, what's expired, what needs new batteries, everything like that. And then I just start organizing it by box. And I'm like, this is a box of decorations. This is the box of giveaways. This is the box of bathroom items. And I just start lining everything up. So by the time camp comes, I'm not packing anything. So next week on my timeline, it's probably time for me to pull out all of my camp shirts and just dump them into a piece of luggage, because that's, what I need. And I'll start taking inventory. Like I already bought all my socks. Yes, I buy new socks every year for camp. Please don't judge me.
No, I love
it. That's a great pro tip, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, buy socks.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they're only for camp. So these aren't going to be just randomly in rotation later. And you start, every time you think of something, write it down, and also put a list on Amazon. Share that list on Amazon with your friends, your Amazon wish list. You never know who will buy stuff for you. I have friends that are like, we can't come visit you this year, but we know you are doing camp. So they buy me things off my Amazon gift list, and then I don't have to buy things for camp.
That's a really good tip. Jannina, it was a long time coming, but we do appreciate you taking time on the RYLACast and giving us, really, we brought you on just because we needed help packing. So, but thank you for your time, and thanks for helping on with us.
You're welcome. Camping chairs are on sale at Sam's right now for $21. And if you want the love seat for both your male and female counselor, they're on for $16.99. Just FYI.
There she is, Jannina Johnson. We do appreciate her time. Again, very tough book to get her. She's in high demand. But it's a real feather in our cap here at the RYLACast that we were able to get Jannina on the show. When do you start packing?
Let's see. What is 12 hours before camp? Is that?
Yeah, there's definitely I don't know. There's things that I pack. Like, for example, I think people know that I've roomed with Brett Scroggins a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And Brett and I really pride ourselves on the cleanliness and the scent of our room.
Okay.
And so I plan on things like that, like we like to, because I want to make sure I'm impressing Brett and make sure that I'm holding up my end of the bargain. But as far as like clothes, it's like day of. It's like might as well be day of.
Yeah,
So.
There's a couple things I guess that I think about, and then I inevitably it's like a day before, and I'm like, oh, I should have definitely done this before now. But,
yeah. But Jannina, she's got it. She's 2 months ahead of the schedule. So anyway, we appreciate her time as always. All right. We're rounding third and heading to home, to use a baseball metaphor, because this is the last episode before baseball season. And here to close us out is the man they call Josey, Andrew Utz.
Well, thank you, Greg. And before I start, there's been some disparaging remarks about Abilene, and as a former resident, I just want to say that I think it's a lovely town.
I think Abilene's great.
The Chili's I frequented because there were no other really good restaurants to go when I lived there. Was a great place, but
I've been to Abilene multiple times. I think this is probably just telling about me and my life work. The place that I've eaten the most in Abilene is the press box at Shotwell Stadium.
I was gonna say Shotwell Stadium.
There, but I will just say that their Frito pie hits. It's really good. It's one of the top 2 Frito pies I've had in a press box.
I've gone to Shotwell Stadium one time, and that was to see whatever team Coach Egger coached at the time. But
yeah, I guess they would. Yeah, they were Region 2 teams. They'd probably play a Region 1 team in a semifinal. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Get on with your point.
Yes, my point. So I was thinking of a topic, something to leave you with today, and listen to a little podcast. There's no point about Abilene. A podcast,
perfect.
About I struggle. I hesitate to say the term self-care, but I was thinking about and I struggle to say the term because I want to be more actionable and direct with where that's going. And I was trying to think of a leadership topic to discuss, and I realized that kind of personal development, self-care, that's where, if you're going to lead a group of people, you kind of have to have things, not have to, but it helps to have things together. And the podcast I was listening to was discussing non-negotiables. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
I am. I mean, I can kind of parse it a little bit, but I'm interested in where you're going with this.
Yeah. So at the core, non-negotiables are any deeply held beliefs that are so important to you that you will not compromise them. So they're non-negotiable. Right. And this particular podcast was a random podcast, health focused. But the idea that, he has kind of umbrellas of whether it's health, personal life, career, these ideas of non-negotiables, and how he differentiates, something that he wants to be a non-negotiable versus something that is a non-negotiable, is he'll move mountains to make sure the non-negotiable item is not touched. Yeah. Which I thought was fascinating. A metaphor of, if you set up dominoes and you want the dominoes to fall, there are some strategic dominoes you can hit first. And you need to be strategic about the goals you set up for yourself. And these ideas of setting up goals to help with commitment is where this non-negotiable comes into play. And I just thought that was a very interesting concept that could work both in a personal life. He was coming at it from, he has a wife and kids, and he said, this wouldn't work for me at 22. And I thought, I wonder if the majority of our listeners are in that 22-year-old and above range. So felt like this was a good topic that spanned the gamut. So just a quick how to determine what your non-negotiables are. Write a ranked list of your core values, and it may include things like finding a purpose in life that's larger than yourself, or could be something as seemingly simple as being honest, being a servant leader, helping others. And then write a list of your top 10 priorities and make a list of goals to help you achieve those. And then define what is non-negotiable about each goal. Like if your health is a priority and you want to get, 8 hours of sleep, what time do you have to go to bed to wake up by a certain time to get 8 hours? And then that becomes a non-negotiable time. And of course, like everything, there are exceptions to the rule, but 99.9% of the time, your non-negotiables are not negotiable.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That basically like the hills you're willing to die on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that it's important to know where that line is. You know what I mean? And hopefully it never gets there, right? You know what I mean? But
right.
I think it's important for everybody to know exactly where that is. So, yeah, fascinating stuff. Thanks, Josey.
Thanks, Greg.
And that is going to do it for this episode of the RYLACast. We do thank you for spending a little bit of your time with us. With us. We hope you will go to our website, RYLA5810.org. All sorts of good stuff there. Just, all sorts of good stuff.
Just peruse.
Just peruse, browse. Spend some time. Make it your homepage. It's great. Anyway, so check it out, RYLA5810.org. And then we would really appreciate it if you were to go and tell a friend about this, rate, subscribe, and tell a friend about this podcast. And here with an antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLAcast is Josey.
So it is baseball season, and if you've noticed on the pitchers' mounds, they have these logos now, like the Texas Rangers do the nice little T into the sand. Mm-hmm. So befriend a member of the grounds crew, the old-fashioned way, take them out for coffee, and get a stencil that says, listen to the RYLAcast, so that on the back of the mound in the sand where the pitcher doesn't go, it'll be nice and perfect. You can stencil, listen to the RYLAcast. You have to be a little creative about the lettering and everything, but that's going to be a way to get the masses to listen, to see the message.
That seems like a perfect way to do it, because baseball's booming right now.
Yeah, and it's antiquated.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Fantastic. Josey, thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Greg.
Talk to you guys next time on the RYLAcast.